Okay. All right. On that note, we can start.
Looks like people want to hear horror stories.
Well, have we got the panel for you? This is world's worst conventions. Y'all, there's way more out there than just DashCon. Buckle in.
I have notes and research here. It's 36 pages, double-sided.
Yeah. That's not a joke. That's real.
This is just highlights of stuff. We could do a book. Maybe we should do a book.
We should. Can I?
I'm not committing to a book.
Can I tell them how this panel started out?
Yes.
The people want a book. So
we'll see how this goes.
Can I tell them how this panel idea came about?
Yeah.
So after I posted a video on IzumiCon, and if you don't know what that is, you'll learn by the end of this panel. And Patrick sent me an email saying, hey, I have this 30-plus page Google Doc where I've been documenting bad cons. Can we do something with it?
So
and after
we should collaborate on something here.
Yeah, and
like, should we do an article or should we do a video? And we were thinking about it for a while. Mm-hmm. And then you.
Yeah, and then at one point I realized, wait a minute, you're going to be at Anime Boston. I'm going to be at Anime Boston. You like doing panels. I like doing panels. Oh my God, who doesn't like a scary stories panel? And here we are.
Death, destruction, deception, all covered. Yes, death.
Yeah, death is here. Get your bingo cards ready. Can we go to the next slide? Cool. So yes, welcome. This is World's Worst Conventions. The name pretty much sums up exactly what we're going to be talking about here. If you like hearing about train wrecks happening in slow motion, or sometimes fast motion, you're in the right place.
All sorts of trains going all sorts of directions, all wrecking. My name is Patrick Delahanty. I am the co-founder of Anime Boston. In 2003, I started AnimeCons.com, and in 2009-ish, I expanded to FanCons.com to include everything fan-related. I host AnimeCons TV podcasts sometimes. When we do the podcast, we've kind of slowed down because, conventions went away for a while. And formerly hosted the Chibi Project, which I don't know if any of you came to our panels here where we destroyed toys for no good reason.
And I'm Kennedy, aka Red Bard. I am a YouTuber and I'm a freelance writer. I make a lot of content about anime and anime fan culture, including, but not limited to, disaster conventions. So, a few quick notes and disclaimers before we get to all the fun stuff. Please, this is not an exhaustive list of all the bad train wreck conventions out there. So, just please do not take it as such. And while there are going to be plenty of anime cons mentioned, this is conventions of all types. We got some wacky conventions in here, don't we?
Yeah, and there's one that's not even a fan con.
Yeah. But it needed to be mentioned anyway, and you'll see why.
So, there's not Fire Festival. I mean, there's documentaries on that. That's a whole separate thing. We're not even getting to that.
So, what makes a bad con? So, a bad con can be a relative term. Sometimes what I think is bad, you might not think is bad. Some cons have bad aspects to them, without necessarily being a bad con. So for the sake of this panel, we're going to try to stick with the cons that were aggressively, undeniably, relentlessly terrible. The bad so heavily outweighs the good, there is no argument to be made. It is a bad con.
Yeah, I went to a bad con once because my hotel roommates didn't pay me for their share of the room. that sort of thing we're not counting. This is like bad for everybody.
Yeah, that's why I chose this picture. I was at Anime 405 earlier this year. I was out after like 3 or 4 hours because there was literally nothing to do but get autographs. I believe your exact phrase was petting zoo.
Yeah, it's a celebrity petting zoo. That's very common on the West Coast. You go to a convention, a comic convention, it's just a celebrity petting zoo. There's no panels, nothing. You just go, there's a dealer's room and a celebrity's signing, and that's it.
Yeah,
so,
and it's like, and I didn't have fun,
yeah, maybe
but I'm sure others did, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
just getting this picture out of the way now.
Yeah.
We're getting it out of the way now. Because that's nothing. That's nothing. Oh no. By the end you might be chanting something else because that's nothing. That's nothing. So we've kind of categorized. We went to the conventions, the bad ones, the really bad ones, and we tried to categorize, okay, what kind of bad conventions are there? What causes it? What takes it to the next level? And so we came up with these categories: the acts of God, attendance issues, nightmare attendees, venue issues, financial issues, internal or leadership issues, or just blatant deception. So we're going to run down the list and give some examples from each of these kinds. We'll get to some, yeah. So let's start with the acts of God.
sometimes you can do everything.
You're noticing
right.
the image on the side?
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
So sometimes you can do everything right. You can do everything by the book, but in the face of unanticipated weather, natural disaster, or death, all the hard work in the world simply doesn't matter. I would love nothing more than to start this out by talking about Magnum Opus Con 1987, and you tell this story so well. I'm begging you.
Yeah. So Magnum Opus Con invited the second Doctor, Patrick Delahanty, and he was advised by his doctor he probably shouldn't travel, so he came to the United States. He went to a con in the Atlanta area, and so he had a great Friday, and they were looking forward to some showing some of his favorite episodes on Saturday. And he didn't show up for breakfast, and they went to check on him, and yeah. The second Doctor died at a convention. And I hate to, can you imagine the staff person who discovered this? Oh, and you have to break the news to your attendees. Like, our beloved guest has passed away. And so, yeah, I don't have too many details about this convention because it's 1987, so there's not a lot of online stuff for this, but from what I've read, his remains were shipped back to the UK and lost in transit. They were eventually found, and so yeah, his remains, I believe he was cremated and the ashes were spread, but...
Across the convention?
No, under trees in a park, and it's nice, but yeah. And so in maintaining fancons.com, I have a status for guests like, oh, canceled, or convention is canceled, or there's an issue with a visa, or I've had to add recently, convention withdrew invitation because of certain voice actors who just, anyway. But I added this and I've used it once. I have one that's died before convention. Poor Carrie Fisher had some convention appearances and that she passed away, but the only time I've used this, because I couldn't put died before convention, he died at, so passed away at convention. Patrick Delahanty is the only one that had that. And hopefully it's the only time I have to use that.
Hi, it is Kennedy from the future here, and on March 2nd, voice actor Mark Dodson had a heart attack whilst in Evansville, Indiana for Evansville HorrorCon. So between the time this panel happened and when it was being uploaded, unfortunately, Patrick did have to use this tag for a second time.
Some of the other ones we got on here are Chattacon 94 and Crunchyroll Expo 2019. Chattacon, was that the one with the frozen pipe?
Yes.
Yeah.
The hotel was undergoing renovations. And they pulled out insulation on the third floor of the hotel, and then temperatures dropped below freezing. On Sunday morning, the pipes froze and burst. The third floor flooded 2 inches deep, and water leaked down to the second and first floors through the light fixtures. Water through the light fixtures. And it poured, these buzzing lights poured into 30-gallon trash cans. And one fan, for some reason, had a bathing suit, mask, and a snorkel. And wandered the con.
And didn't they use that to file insurance?
Yes, they
Yeah.
used fans' video and pictures to file their insurance claim.
Attendance issues. Y'all, nobody knows better than this guy that it can be very easy to grossly over or underestimate attendance. Would you like to tell them why?
I ran a convention called Providence Anime Conference. Has anybody heard of it?
I heard that Asuka cosplayer gasp when you said that.
Yeah, there was a whole section, it was a 20 minutes on Providence Anime Conference. We vastly overestimated the attendance of that. The New England Anime Society that runs Anime Boston decided to start a convention in Rhode Island. Because hey, New England Anime Society, let's bring anime to a state that doesn't have a convention, which didn't at the time. And so we thought, okay, maybe we'll get 1,500 people. And
There weren't 1,500 people.
It was for reasons I don't want to get into because this could take the whole. We literally did a panel on this at Anime Boston
2018. There's an article recapping it on AnimeHerald.com if anybody's interested.
We did a whole panel on this, but yeah, the poor promotion. We got like 200 people. Fortunately, the New England Anime Society had the money so that the convention could happen, and the people who were there had a great time. And also, it was a 21 plus con, and the bartenders felt really bad for us and gave us generous pours. So, in one way, it was a terrible convention. In the other, it was great. But there's some other examples here, bad and good, or over and under estimates for attendance. You want to talk about?
Sure, I'll just jump right into this. So, an example of one underestimating attendance: New York Star Trek 76. Was that the one with the vacation packages, or was that?
No, This was one of the first Star Trek cons.
Yeah.
And so they really didn't know.
Oh yeah, it's this one. It's the one where someone tried to throw a pie at William Shatner. How can I forget? Yes. So like he said, this was one of the first Star Trek conventions. It's 1976. People love Star Trek, so they're thinking, oh my God.
But the show was canceled.
Yeah. So they're thinking, oh my God, how many people are really going to show up?
1,000.
So yeah, 1,000. How much can this con cost? $10. Anyway, so they didn't think a ton of people would show up. It's estimated that there was anywhere between 20 and 50,000 people. That's a lot. Now, for context, there's over that's like Anime Boston attendance.
There's roughly 30,000 people here.
Yeah. So there were riots. Someone threw a pie at William Shatner. They missed. And there's a quote on here: New York convention run by a wretched greedhead who oversold the memberships when the convention hotel was out of space and hid in her hotel room, refusing to deal with the chaos and still allowing people to go to any ticket outlet and pay to get in. And then there's Crunchyroll Expo Australia 2022. This is a pretty recent one. I saw someone in the audience, you right there, you laughed and nodded. You know exactly what's about to happen. Yeah, so Crunchyroll Expo Australia 2022. If I'm not mistaken, it was the first time they had brought Crunchyroll Expo to Australia. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
And I don't know the specifics of how it happened, but reportedly, they sold, I think it was nearly double what they were supposed to. That number could be slightly off, but it was a significant margin. I remember that. Certainly the people who were there remember it, because what happened was at the con itself, the line to get into the con was huge. And of course, it rains. It pours. A storm goes over the area, and there's just tons of social media posts by soaked people wanting to go into the con. I see the person nodding again. You were probably right there also on social media looking up the posts of the drenched attendees, just being like, this is terrible. Why would you do this to me, Crunchyroll?
Hey, that's really what you expect.
And so, going to overestimating, we've got Houston Con 1982.
Oh, this is a wacky
also
one.
known as the Con of Wrath. Wrath of Con of Wrath. This was a Star Trek con. And, New York Star Trek, like 20 to 50,000 people. How many do you think are going to show up at Houston Con? They had the entire cast of Star Trek except Leonard Nimoy. So the whole classic cast. And this was at the Summit Hotel in Houston. Houston's going to come up a lot, so you might want to keep track.
Yeah.
They expected attendance to be in the thousands. It was not. Hundreds showed up. And so the stars ended up speaking in mostly empty convention halls. It was hot summer, and the hotel knew that they wouldn't have enough money to pay for stuff, so they didn't want to do what was contracted. So, and though the guests didn't want to. Sorry, my notes are messed up. Yeah, there's a lot of documentation on this. So they were going to set up a stage, and they were going to have a performance, and 2 o'clock rehearsal was scheduled, but the workers were still scurrying around, wiring and hammering, building the stage. At 4 o'clock, DeForest Kelley left in disgust and went back to the hotel. There was no producer, no director, no script. Nobody knew who the leader was. At 5 o'clock, the stage still isn't finished, and the cast is wondering if the show's going to go on at all. Instead of a 60-piece orchestra, they had a band of about 8. There was rumor that Leonard Nimoy was going to make a surprise appearance, but that did not happen. And William Shatner had a plane to catch on Sunday afternoon, so they couldn't delay it. So Harve Bennett, who directed Star Trek II, took charge, and he rounded up the performers and spoke to them all, and felt it wasn't fair to the fans that showed up, and so they ended up putting on a impromptu performance. So yeah, it was just a huge disaster, and Larry Nemec, who's a writer, is actually working on a documentary about the entire convention with interviews and everything.
Now, another detail, wasn't this the con that was so confident in its attendance numbers that they were selling vacation packages?
Yes.
Yeah, they were literally trying to sell vacation packages around this con because it's 1982 and people are still using travel agents, so.
Yeah. Let's see, we've also got FedCon USA in 2008. That's kind of infamous.
Ooh.
FedCon is a very popular convention in Europe.
It's in Germany, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, Germany, and they licensed the name for the United States as if the name recognition would mean something here. So some of the confirmed guests didn't show up the first night. And Aaron Douglas from Battlestar Galactica said that they never came through with the promised plane tickets. On the second day of the event, during a panel with Star Trek Enterprise's John Billingsley, the con MC came on stage to tell the crowd, "We have no choice but to cancel the remainder of the event." They offered full refunds, and FedCon Germany pulled its licensing out of the name actually ahead of the convention, but they kept using it. And although the convention events had shut down by noon, autographs stayed open until 4. So at least they had that. And then there's Rewind Con in 2016. And that was one of those, we're going to put out a ton of celebrities, and you're going to love it. And it's going to be everybody from all your favorite shows. Well, no refunds. They hyped up about 64 big-name guests, like a 90210 reunion, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, O-Town, 90 Degrees, but hardly anybody showed up. So it's a financial disaster. They can't pay these people. The celebrity photos, well, they've got one printer, so. The exclusive 90210 panel was also, that people paid for, it was also streamed live on the internet for free. They promised a boy band reunion concert on Sunday night, but nobody told the guys in these bands. So the few that did show up turned it into a dance party, and there were about 15 people in attendance. And when the people tried to address the con organizer, she just talked to the hand. So.
Oh, nightmare attendees. You know, it's always a fine line at conventions. You want attendees to have fun, but sometimes you also have to keep them in line, because if you don't, you get things like these cons. Boscone 24, Disclave 41, Rainforest, and Katsu 16.
Boscone was in Boston. Anybody familiar with it? Yeah. Are you familiar with the Boscone from Hell? Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't it in a Sheraton?
It was at the Sheraton Boston.
This one?
This hotel right over there.
Yeah.
You want to know what happened?
We're on historical ground.
Well, apparently Boscone started getting younger and younger attendees, and things got a little more out of hand every year. And so finally, and there would be a lot of people just coming in and not getting a badge, a lot of ghosts, as we call them, and particularly underage high schoolers going to parties that were serving alcohol. There was also cold weather causing a lot of fire alarms, which caused people to wake up with PTSD for months after the con. This con, everything just sort of escalated out of control, and the hotel is like, nope, we're done. And so Boscone had to move away.
They've never been back to the Sheraton since, have they?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Not recently, certainly.
Yeah. Then we've also got Disclave 41 in 97.
Oh, this is the flood one!
Yeah. You want to take this one?
Oh, sure.
This is not a picture of that.
So, a quick question for all of you. Have you ever been to a con and you've seen a sign in your hotel room, or maybe in the venue itself, but probably your hotel room, that says, "Don't hang items from sprinkler head, this will cause flooding"? Yeah? Yeah, this con is why you see that. So, I'm going to read you what it says here on the notes, because nothing I can say can match how it's worded here. Shortly after 5 a.m., a bondage group broke the ceiling fire sprinkler.
Of all the ways to break it.
Water gushed, alarms sounded, flood poured across the floor and down the elevator shafts, hotel rooms, the lobby, the general manager's office, and the last defense The green room were all soaked. So con staff moved the displaced hotel guests to the suites. They brought staff in to clean up the mess. The con continued. The person responsible wasn't a convention member, and the hotel did not hold the convention responsible. Next year's hotel, a different one, demanded a huge security deposit after hearing about the flooding, and so Disclave rebranded as Capclave. And its legacy lives on in those flood signs. And speaking of ones with particular infamy and a particular legacy, Rainforest. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people know this one, for better or for worse. A lot of people know this one. Oh my God, do you want to talk about this one or should I?
You go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Oh my God, okay. So, the long and short of it, there were a lot of substances at Rainforest. There was a lot of alcohol, and y'all, again, nothing can match what's worded in here. These quotes from what I assume are articles written about it. Booze, mushrooms, and nitrous oxide were ubiquitous in the halls of the Hilton where they stayed, as was the lingering stench of... There's no kids in the audience, is there?
Lingering stench of poop.
Yeah. One furry wreaked havoc in the hotel lobby bathroom, unleashing a wave of toilet water 2.5 inches deep. Oh, you're saying ew now? Brace yourself. Oh, you don't even know. You don't even know what's coming. Others, meanwhile, oh God, indulged in the act of crinkling, which involves the wearing of diapers and the love of the sound they make. Do what you will, said the well-behaved furries, who soon regretted their words when their diapers were found to be chock full of stinky stuff. Later, one of the organizers chided attendees for, quote, an incident with diapers being found on people's cars. Oh, and someone shit in the pool. The police were in and out of the convention all weekend, and that con has not come back. And that con has not come back.
Was anybody here at CatsuCon 2016? You guys know what happened at CatsuCon 2016?
It's hard to be there in 2016 and not know.
Yeah. Is this photo from there?
This photo is from Katsu 2016. Oh, what is that? Oh, flooding. I think it's water. I don't know if it's water. I would assume it's water, but I don't know that for a fact.
Well, I read that there were holes punched in walls and vandalism.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you say you read that, but there's photos of the vandalism out there. That happened.
But yeah, there was another case of nightmare attendees. Let's move on to venue issues. Well, I think we can cover some of these.
Yeah. So if the venue is having problems, the whole con is having problems. And what's more, everybody's going to notice because everyone is in the venue. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to ignore. Some examples. This photo right here, this is from AkiCon 2012 in Washington, which is known for being rainy in the first place. So imagine that, but at your convention, which is also in a parking garage. Yeah. Yeah, so for reasons, TM, if they're in the notes, please remind me, but for reasons, the convention moved the artist alley into a parking garage. And not just any parking garage, a leaking parking garage in rainy Washington. Photos like this are dime a dozen if you look up pictures of the Artist Alley at OccuCon. Lots of buckets set up to catch some of the drippage. A lot of artists reporting like merchandise getting destroyed because it got damaged by all the dripping water. There were people who reported feeling sick because, you know, if you're an artist, you're in the Artist Alley more or less all day, and it's one thing to be around all this drippage for, you know, a couple minutes, and another to be there for several hours for a whole weekend. Yeah, it does, and they were very mad about it. There is a lot of documentation about this con because a lot of people were, correctly, very mad about it.
So, next I'm going to bring up a convention I'm pretty sure nobody here went to.
Correct us if we're wrong.
Wizard World in China. This is their only convention attempt in China, and it didn't go well. They changed venues a few days before the con to a much smaller venue because the original venue either wanted to overcharge Westerners or double booked. Reports are varying. The new venue was a pop-up tent. Also, it was very hot. They sold 7,000 tickets for a venue that could hold several hundred. All the vendors were canceled, and only Coca-Cola had a booth. Celebrities started arriving around noon, but there were no chairs for them to sit and sign. And at 2:30, the organizers announced nobody else inside the tent, and VIPs would not be allowed in on Sunday. Caused a mini riot, and they promised refunds, but gave no info and didn't reply to inquiries. It was scheduled until 6, but most of the stars got fed up and left around 4.
And speaking of people leaving early, Fandom Fest 2017. Oh my God. Hey, for no reason at all, who here likes Macy's? Yeah, it's okay. Well, guess, you know, yeah, no opinion. Yeah, no, it's whatever. Well, you want to know who doesn't like Macy's? The Fandom Fest. The people who were there. So, Fandom Fest was in Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
Yeah. And they were advertising, originally, that it was going to be at one venue. Radio silence about that. 2 weeks before the con, everybody is assuming, for good reason, it's going to be at this venue that it was at last year and that they already told artists, and I think there was like one advertisement that had it listed, hey, we're going to be in this venue. Yeah, no, turns out we're not going to be there, actually. So very hastily, the con, again, it's like 2 weeks out. I think it's like only a few days out by the time they announced this.
11 days before the event.
11 days
on Twitter.
Yeah, 11 days before the event via Twitter, they announced, hey, it's not going to be at this venue, but we got the next best thing. We got a Macy's. We got a Macy's, and then a lot of the guests, including one of their main guests, if not the main guest, Weird Al Yankovic. Yes, woo! They all start announcing that they are no longer going to be at the con. At least one guest confirmed via social media that it was because the con had never, like, paid for their travel arrangements. So what are they supposed to do?
So with Midwest Media Expo, it's pretty basic. The venue canceled 2 days before the con. And some staff cited issues with the hotel management. Apparently they had been under 5 names in the last 10 years. And some actors, such as John St. John, appeared at a backup event called NotCon, which is now spun off into its own actual con, and now they're running cruises out of Florida.
Tokyo and Tulsa 2019. I have to ask, is anybody else in this room from or has lived in Oklahoma? Okay, that's all right. I don't know what I was expecting. So Tokyo and Tulsa 2019, Oklahoma is so cursed when it comes to anime cons. And Tokyo and Tulsa 2019, so normally they're held, well, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But the venue that they usually were at was undergoing some renovations. So they decided to move to the nearby city of Broken Arrow. They have some difficulty pinning down a new venue. There are miscommunications with the venue that they were trying to use, and it is announced after the deadline for artists to request refunds, so they can't refund anything, that they are going to be putting the Artist Alley in an abandoned Hobby Lobby, which is a ways away from the rest of the con. They had to get a shuttle bus to take people there. Yeah, and for bonus points, this is a summer con in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a warm state, everybody. That abandoned Hobby Lobby, so from what reports have said, the air conditioning only worked in some spots. It was dusty, there was open wiring, there were spots where there was just dripping water. Artists had to get their own like Christmas lights because it was so dark in there that you couldn't see their wares. And again, they couldn't get anything refunded. There was also one artist who made a joke on social media that people should ghost the con, and the con kicked her out, and they were like, well, she broke the rules of her contract, and then the local news came by, and Tokyo and Tulsa never specified what they meant by that. It was horrible.
And we've got not much left. So, Anime Next.
Yes.
Partly the same thing. 2022, they had an issue with their venue because the venue wouldn't follow the COVID policy they wanted. Mad respect for that. But so they did a staff-only event. 2023, Tokyo and Tulsa problem, where everything is a 20-minute shuttle ride from your panels are in the hotel in one place, main events and dealers are in the convention center, the 20-minute ride away. A lot of people didn't even know. They like went to the convention center and didn't know there's panels, and I think Artist Alley was in the hotel. But yeah, you get this big wall dividing these two.
Let's clarify something.
Yeah.
So I was there for 2 days. Most of it was in something called New Jersey Convention Exposition.
Yeah.
I thought that were all of it, but 8 to 10 miles away was New Brunswick, the other venue.
Yeah, the Hill.
Hyatt New Brunswick.
The Hyatt.
So
Yeah.
almost all the panels were in Hyatt New Brunswick.
Yeah.
And all the gaming was there, but the only like the main panels will be in the other one. So
Yeah.
they had to choose which one. And
Yeah.
I had to make transit guides on Instagram. And I spoke to the con chair right after.
Oh my God.
Because
Yeah.
this is not acceptable.
Yeah, and the parking at the Hyatt wasn't free, so if you were driving yourself, you had to pay every time you left.
Yeah.
The bus schedule was poorly communicated.
Excuse me. I
Yeah.
have to say something also. Also, the
Well-
shuttle only runs for every hour.
Yeah.
You gotta wait
Yeah.
for an hour for the
Yeah.
shuttle to come.
Because why wouldn't it?
And Anime Next has announced there's no 2024 convention. I hope they can get this sorted out and come back, because Anime Next is a decent convention. I like them a lot. I want them to come back. They just need to find a good venue, because yikes, they haven't had good luck lately.
Financial problems. So, y'all, money isn't everything unless you're running a con, at which point it kind of is. It kind of is. So if you can't afford a venue, if you can't afford guests or travel for your guests, if you can't afford any number of any other things that you need to make the con run, what do you really have? So would you like to do, we got two really heavy hitters on here. I'll let you do Las Pegasus unless you want to do DashCon.
No, by all means, you take that. I know. Yeah, you can take it for reasons. Las Pegasus Unicon was a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic convention in Las Vegas. And about 800 to 1,200 fewer people than expected showed up. and attendees were kicked out of the hotel rooms or stranded with enormous travel costs. Voice actors were abandoned and unable to get reimbursed for their expenses. As much as $40,000 reportedly remaining in the hands of the conference organizer, who deleted the website. Voice actors were paid with bouncing checks. Advertisers buying space in brochures that went unprinted, and the vendors were told to use money called vendor bits to exchange for the real thing later, but they never could. They were supposed to accept these vendor bits and get real money later, but the real money never came. And Tara Strong tweeted, "Hey, Las Vegas Uni, please stop saying you paid the talent. Your check bounced. I've not been paid a dime. You ruined it for all first-year cons." That is true, because My Little Pony cons had a tough time after this. Any first-year con had a tough time getting any guests, because this ruined it for years. So it had a definite effect on that fandom.
Y'all know what I'm about to talk about.
Yeah. We got 13 minutes left. We can just skip that one.
They chanted ball pit at the start of the panel. I think.
All right. Well, we gotta.
Ball pit, ball pit, ball pit, ball pit, ball pit.
The people want what they want, and I don't make the rules. But I am going to speed run it because I do want to get to other cons on here. Does anybody not know what DashCon is? Oh my God.
So what do you think ball pit means?
All right. So there is, more than any other con in this panel, there is a surplus of documentation on DashCon. So the good news is you're going to have a fun adventure on Google after this panel.
Yeah.
So to kind of speed run what DashCon was, past tense, it was one and done. So in 2014, there was a group that wanted to put on a Tumblr convention. This group included one person who was a teenager at the time. No con organizing experience between them, between any of these people, as far as I know. So they're like, oh my God, let's arrange a Tumblr convention, because it was kind of a big thing on Tumblr that people wanted a Tumblr convention. So they get this venue in Illinois that doesn't really do fan-centric conventions. They're used to doing business conventions. There's a herpetology show that happens here. Weddings. And then they get DashCon. And DashCon, they thought they were going to get a lot of attendance. They did not. They got extremely not a lot of attendance. Guests, Steam Powered Giraffe was supposed to be there. They canceled before the con. Yeah, hey. Famously/infamously, Welcome to Night Vale was supposed to perform there until the events of Friday at the con. So for reasons, TM, so the venue, the hotel, wanted the money up front from DashCon. Not a lot of people showed up for DashCon, not what they projected at all. So DashCon, they don't have the money. So they're telling their attendees this, and they fundraise the con by way of putting people in a room. There's video footage of this. They're singing, and they're literally putting cash in a bag, trying to, and I would assume also taking electronic payments, trying to get the money they need for the convention. Ultimately, they succeed, but people are now aware, oh my God, DashCon is having severe money problems. Night Vale asks to be paid. I believe it was Night Vale asked to be paid. The con could not fulfill that payment. I believe that's what happened. I could be wrong about that, but for whatever reason, Night Vale decided to cancel their performance, which really upset a lot of people, because a lot of people were there for Night Vale, and people who bought tickets for Night Vale, because Night Vale was a separate event.
Hello, Kennedy from the future again. So I had my wires a bit crossed here. Per archives of their site, Night Vale was not a separately ticketed event. I was thinking of the Steam-powered Giraffe concert that was canceled months before the con. All the same, what I'm about to tell you about next was something that they were offering people who had reserved seats for Night Vale.
We're told that they could instead have an extra hour in the ball pit because the con... Yes, woo! Because the con had got a ball pit, which we had a picture of earlier, and the photo is just, it's in this big empty room, and it looks so sad. There were reports of people peeing in it, but I have not seen anything substantiating that, so.
All right, well, let's move on so we can get to some of these really...
Speaking of the juicy ones! Leadership issues. Y'all, teamwork makes the dream work. So when the leadership and the internal issues go wrong, everything goes wrong. IzumiCon 2018, if you want to learn more about this con, I am not joking. I have a 2-hour video on this on my channel. I spent literal years researching this. Thank you. To put a long story short, there was a con in Oklahoma called IzumiCon. It was put under the leadership of someone who had previously been not technically blacklisted, but on probation from the con because she volunteered in previous years, and she was just not a good volunteer. There was a story, she allegedly left her door watching shift, which is like the easiest task you can get at a con, just watch the door, and people report she left early and didn't tell people until well after she left. So people did not like dealing with her. And anyway, she ended up becoming the owner of the con because the con's owners wanted to put it under new local ownership, and she somehow was able to get the con, and the con had less money than usual that year. She was the only one with access to the bank account with the money. And then it mysteriously disappeared after she made all these posts about getting new tattoos and going on vacations. The money just disappeared. I don't know. Oh, it's so weird. And then she ghosted everybody. And so the directors quit because they didn't want to get involved in a legal fight, and the con imploded. It didn't happen ultimately. All this happened, by the way, 2 weeks before the con.
And if you want the details, go watch her video.
2 hours.
Because we could, again, 2 hours on this.
2 hours. I could make a whole panel about how cursed Oklahoma cons are, but I don't know how much of a hit that would be in Boston.
So, Anime Matsuri.
Oh. Another one that could be its own panel.
I'm going to be careful here what I say so that I don't get sued. I'm going to speak facts. I was invited to Anime Matsuri as a guest in 2007 for their first year. They wanted me to run Chibi Project and Anime Unscripted, and so great. I said, fly me down, give me a hotel room, and so they agreed. The chairman, John Lee, or Lee. I'll go with Lee.
I'm not sure which way it's pronounced.
So I agreed, and months go by. I send them the description for the stuff when they requested it, and oh great, okay, get that up, and I see it's on the site. And then a few months go by, and it's getting closer to the con. I'm like, okay, so am I going to hear about travel? Am I going to go down there? Oh yeah, we're going to get that book. You'll hear from us soon. And so I kept writing, but I never heard back after that. And like, finally, a week before the con, I said, okay, if I don't hear from you 3 days before this con starts, I'm not going. I can't. And so I never heard back. And so I posted on their forum, this is before Twitter and everything, in 2007. Yeah, I'm not running Anime Unscripted, I'm not going to do the Chibi Project. I can't go because they never give me flight info. And I still never heard back until like 6 months after the con. They're like, oh, sorry. They were posted on the animecons.com forums apologizing. And they said, oh, we'd like to get you down next year. And I think it was the same weekend as Anime Boston. I'm like, no. even if it wasn't, I probably wouldn't have gone. Turns out I dodged a bullet. Anime Matsuri has a very, very bad reputation in the industry for how they treat their guests. And again, I'm trying to make sure what I say. They have been sued for non-payment. They have sued, I believe they sued a cosplayer or
it was a Lolita YouTuber
for defamation.
Yeah, I believe so, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
Yes, we could, but they sued her, and then she posted, there's a whole thing. They've been written up in the Houston newspaper for all of this stuff, all of these issues, and you'll notice if you look at their guest list, they get a lot of international guests because they're not familiar with Anime Matsuri. Just about every voice actor out there, even the new ones, no, don't go to Anime Matsuri. Sometimes they might get one that hasn't heard about it, but then they'll cancel. Like a few years ago, they got Steve Bloom and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who probably all know their big names, and like less than a week later, they canceled because their friends told them what was up. So yeah, it's run by somebody that's not great. And there's other conventions run by terrible people. There's one guy who runs conventions in the Midwest under the animecon.org banner, which has no association with animecons.com. He's been accused of rape a lot. I'm just going to leave it at that because he's sued people. He sued Nerd and Tie, and that took years for them to get out of that lawsuit. That's why I'm being careful what I'm saying here. So let's talk about OhioCon. We got 3 minutes left, and we still have other slides we haven't gotten to. But OhioCon was a mess.
There's a very long article on ANN about it that I wrote, but the long and short of it is that a lot of the now former leadership formed not officially a union, but functionally a union, a group trying to collectively bargain with the nonprofit that controls the con. Again, long article about it on ANN.
Oh, God, there's so many blatant deceptions.
Tent Moot could be its own panel.
Tent Moot, very briefly, because we get 2 minutes, and we still have to get the last one, which is great.
Speed run it!
Tent Moot was a Lord of the Rings convention in Oregon. They flew some of the actors to the convention and canceled the convention while they're in the air. Turns out the entire thing was a scam, and I don't know why they flew it if it was a scam, but there's a whole thing.
Wasn't someone involved the cult leader?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was a cult leader.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be its own panel.
Yeah, there's actually a book about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I found it on Amazon, but I haven't read it.
Why don't you skip to Wine Country unless you want to talk about any of these
I
others?
could talk about Wine Country forever. Wine Country Comic Con was just a really overzealous planning convention. They invited a ton of guests. They all ended up canceling. And then the guy held it again across the street from my house. This picture was taken across the street from my house when I lived in California, in Petaluma, California. Notice there's nobody there. Yeah, they were promising all sorts of stuff and never delivered, and it was just terrible. But
so what's the worst of the worst? Does anybody want to make a guess? It's not DashCon. It's not Firefest. We can take a couple more.
Oh, I'm going to assume I forgot the name, but it was under.
we haven't mentioned it yet. We haven't mentioned it yet.
TanaCon?
Not TanaCon. Joseph Dosor, you look, huh? No, I think we need to. I think.
Oh, that's serious.
The American Legion's annual convention of 1976.
Yeah, I heard someone yell Legionnaires.
Somebody knew. Hey, spoiler alert. There were more than 2,000 people in attendance. On July 27th, a few days after the convention, Ray Brennan died at his home of an apparent heart attack. On July 30th, Frank Aveney also died of an apparent heart attack, as did 3 others. On August 1st, 6 more died. Ernest Campbell had 3 of them as patients and realized all 3 had been at the Legionnaires' convention. Within a week, more than 130 people had been hospitalized, 25 had died. In the end, there were 182 cases, 29 people died. In January, 6 months after the convention, bacteria was discovered to be breeding in the hotel's air conditioning system. That bacteria was later named Legionella pneumophila. It's the most common cause of Legionnaire's disease. Now you know why it's called Legionnaire's disease.
Yeah.
It started at a convention. Let's hope we don't get otaku disease someday.
All right. Thank you.
So if you want to find more, please follow her on YouTube, Red Bard.
Thank you. And don't forget to check out Anime Cons TV.
Yes, and fancons.com.
And fancons.com, yes. This is all, it's a great resource.
Also, please don't sue us.
Oh yes, that too.